Our history is marked by indenture, by servitudes, by coming here, being sold, having the shipper make a lot of money since he saved a lot on your food and water and comfort on the ship. And that was quite a profitable trade, just like later the slave trade was profitable. Well, what happened to that system? One of the things that happened, which gave birth to American racism, a long tradition here, is that in 1666 and 1667, there was something called Bacon's Rebellion, where some lesser aristocrats, Lord Bacon for one, were dissatisfied that they got the poorer lands from the Native American lands captured. They wanted more and they weren't given it. They joined and paid for the arms of the indentured servants who were angry, of the freed blacks who were angry and wanted a different kind of government, and for the slaves who rose up in revolt. It was a united revolt of whites and blacks against a class system of ownership and dispossession. So the dispossessed rose up together. And around that time, there were, I want to check and make sure I've got this right, there were 800 rebellions, as well as 6 slave revolts. And those rebellions were united of blacks, free and slave, and indentured servants. They brought in thousands of soldiers from England. Those rebellions were violently put down, and England had a problem on their hands. They didn't want this anymore, and so they instituted racism. They gave whites particular privileges over blacks, which would prevent them from uniting with blacks. They were of higher stature. They got more privileges. When they were freed, they could even own a slave if they could afford one. And so that the balance shifted. And Jim Crow, according to Adolph Reed, who his book about the South, which just came out in this year, in 2022, his last chapter talks about how even the Jim Crow laws were much more beneficial for the ruling class than the ordinary people, who got the distinction of being white, but very little else, and whose labor was cheapened, and who were through that petty bribe prevented from uniting with black workers and winning. And so that's a class lesson for all of us. It's also a history lesson, which is a very important lesson for us to learn, because it shows us that our history has been doctored. It's not only, as the book 1619 and its followers talk about, the horror of slavery and Jim Crow, which has been repressed and continues, that marks our history and has been unspoken. It's also the mass of white Americans' history as bondspeople